Hey folks, it's Tom, your Frugal Prepper. I thought I'd show you this new Autel X whatever Diag Gun 5. It works pretty good. We're going to do an automatically search here. And we'll say yes. Yeah, okay. And it's got it, 2012 Yukon XL, yes. And really what I want to do is system selection. What I got is ABS lights. I've already diagnosed this, but I'm just kind of showing you the tool and showing you what's going on with it. And this, I think it's got automatic air conditioning. And we're going to say it's got the navigation radio. I believe it does. And I think it does have a trailer brake. And I don't know. Whatever. I just want to see the ABS module. And so, ignition control, transmission control, amplifier, body control. What was it under? Oh crap! I think it was electronic brake control module or something. Electronic brake control module. You'd think they just put these in alphabetical order or something, but they don't. So EBCM. BQ. And so we're going to read the fault code out of it. And we're going to do a DTC display. And it's going to show us right front wheel speed sensor. Last test failed, current, this ignition failed, and the lights are on. And you can get under there and wiggle the wires around, and it'll come back. And then it'll go away again. So what we got is a bad connection. So I'm going to replace the pigtail and the ABS sensor. Just because I could order it for this, so the ABS sensor is really cheap. It's a good way just to make sure we get all the wiring replaced. Normally when you see erratic data, you're looking at probably a bad hub or wheel speed sensor. These, they're not integrated. You can replace them separate. On a lot of the smaller GMs, they're integrated with the hub. But when you're seeing this, and a lot of times on these, the rust gets under them and lifts them up away from the wheel. But right now we're going to do this. And brake boost regulation pressure sensor possibility failure. This is something that has come up on this again before, and we have replaced the boost pressure sensor, and it still comes up once in a while, but it's past this time and the last time. So I don't think that's an active failure. That's not what's causing all these lights to come on. All right, so that's how we're diagnosing this. We wiggle it, the problem goes away, then it comes back. It's a bad connection. I did replace that hub over there a while ago, which came with a new sensor, but you know, we're just going to replace them both with a genuine AC Delco part and get that done. I also I just subbed out getting the transfer case replaced in this girl, and so it came back from the junkyard where they replaced it, and it's got a screw in the tire. So I'm gonna put a plug in that, plug that hole. You know, I don't know, it could have picked up on the road at the junkyard. It happens, but it happened while it's under my control, so I'm gonna fix it for free. So let's get to it. Oh, okay. All right, so I've got the new connector here. I'm going to make sure I wire these up in the same order. So this side, this one here will be green, this one will be the gray, just because that's how This one is wired up. I don't know that it matters if you change those up. It comes with these two wire splices. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to solder those, make a good tight connection. But the weather pack on this one has failed, and you can't see it on camera, but if you look down in there, one of those pins is corroded. And so that's the problem, is some water has gotten in there, it's corroded that pin, and now we're getting an intermittent connection. So I could just replace the connector, but I still have a corroded pin. So we're going to replace the wheel speed sensor as well. Comes with all new connector pieces to hold it on. This is a genuine AC Delco, everything. Just genuine AC Delco. Because AC Delco is just about as cheap as Chinese stuff if you order it online. If you go to the dealership and get it, it costs more. But a lot of times on sensors, you're better off to go with genuine. And then, I replaced this hub and it came with the sensor, but you can see that this plastic piece has broken off at some point and it's just been flopping around up there. And the hole where it goes is just empty. So it didn't get stuck in the hole when I took it out, is what I'm saying. And it's just got to crimp on to these two wires right here, put that wire loom back over it, and or solder on, I guess, not crimp on. Put some heat shrink over it. I'll put some of that marine grade heat shrink over it to seal it up. And now I got to pull this caliper off and pull the rotor off, and to get to where this wheel speed sensor goes into the hub at. We'll clean around there. We'll bolt the new sensor down. A lot of times where these sensors bolt in, you get some rust jacking under there, so you always want to clean that off. And I always put a little drop of oil around that O-ring and seat it down in there. And some of these will have shims. So if you have shims, you want to keep those shims. And then you want to turn it slowly when you first put it in there and make sure it's not grinding. It's not touching that sensor where it grinds it. I don't know if this one even has shims. It might be a newer design. It is the newer design wheel speed sensor because it has this small connector. The older hubs have a bigger connector, and they have a different tooth pattern on the hub for the wheel speed sensor. So even if you cut the connector off and physically splice them together, you'll still get an implausible wheel speed sensor data signal error because the computer doesn't recognize it, because it's a different pattern than the older ones on these newer ones. So you just have to pay attention when you buy a hub or a sensor. Do you have the smaller connector or a slightly wider connector? The slightly wider one is for the older trucks. So we'll go ahead and I'll get the soldering iron out and we'll get started. So now we've got the brake rotor off, caliper's tied up, and now we come down here and we see our old wheel speed sensor. And this is a T30. You got kind of hammered in there past the rust. You'll think it's a T27, but it's actually a T30. You can tap it in there like I did, and then hopefully she comes out for you that easy. Sometimes they don't come out that easy and they break off. Then you're in a mess and you really have to just kind of go get a new hub probably. But that's off. Now we're gonna see if it has any shims on it when we pull this out. Yeah, you can see there's two shims on this one. So we're gonna put those same two shims back onto the other one. And we'll take and smush some of that little grease there. We'll smush some of that on the other end of the sensor, although I think that's actually just the wheel bearing grease from down in there. But yep, so now we just have to clean off the face of this and make sure there's no rusty spots there. See how that rust kind of builds up under it after a while? So we'll do that. And I'm just gonna use my angle grinder. Maybe not. It barely fits in there. Let me see if I can cut some of this off. I'm going to basically wear it on the edge of this so it'll fit down in. There we go. Now we got that surface nice and clean. So now we're ready to put the other sensor down in there. I also took and just went over those with the angle grinder as well, just to make sure they're nice and clean on both sides. There's no rustiness on those either. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you get that kind of wiggled and pushed down in there before you tighten the bolt. I don't like to use the bolt to draw it in because you risk breaking it. So now that that's in there, it's in there good and tight. Now we're ready to go ahead and attack this guy once I put the rotor and the caliper back on. This doesn't actually look too rusty, so I'm just gonna spray some ice stick on there and just to help prevent it from getting too rusty, and then we'll slide the rotor back on, put the caliper on. All right, I got these hooked up in the right order. The heat shrink's on, waiting on the soldering iron to heat up. And then we'll go ahead and melt some solder onto those, put some heat shrink over them, shrink them up, tuck them back in that wire loom, and we'll be set. All right, I got them soldered, and now I'm just gonna wait a minute for those to cool down, and then we'll bend them over and slide that heat shrink back over them and shrink that up. And we're just about there. All right, I got the heat shrink on them. So now we're ready to tuck them back into that wiring loom, put a little electrical tape around the end of it, and that one is fixed. All right, there we are. I got some electrical tape around the end of that and tucked it all in. The wheel speed sensors all clipped in. I did just go ahead and replace this thing because it wasn't actually that hard to come out. And we got a new wheel speed sensor, new wheel speed pigtail. We should be good to go. Now I just got to patch this tire and get that back on and change the oil in it.